Are you as good as you think you are? This is an important question. Well, how did I come up with this topic to begin with? Well, when I ask people, hey, if you have anything you want me to talk about, this is one of those things that was suggested. And I was almost going to avoid the topic altogether because it is so opinionated. I thought that it could be a little controversial. Sometimes people's feelings get hurt, or there's hard truths, and those are hard to swallow. And Chris McCall says, yep, I don't think I'm that good. Chris, I'm going to disagree. I think you are pretty good. I think you are pretty good, and you continue to improve, and look where your drumming is taking you. It's good stuff, really good stuff. A couple other things have happened recently that I thought, well, maybe it is a good thing to talk about. So, three things specifically. I've been watching the World Series, so I have some thoughts on that and how that might be related to this topic. The other is, if you're a musician, especially a drummer, there's been a handful of drummers online who have been doing these guess the rhythm things. So they will tap out or play a rhythm on the snare, or that maybe it's a drum beat they'll play, and they'll say, guess which one they're playing, and they'll give 3 to 4 examples to choose from, and you pick which one you think it is. And then the other is another drummer acquaintance, somebody that's found me online, who lives in Kentucky, was ranting about his band, complaining about his abilities. And so we can touch on that too, which is interesting because I don't really know this person, personally. Just we found each other through the internet, through social media. I think some people have certain skill sets, and some people are predisposed, so to speak, or maybe it's just part of their DNA that things come easy for them, or they're really good at what they do. I'm not talking just about musicians, so the World Series, I'm watching these baseball players. So how people become really good or really great at what they do, how does that happen? Like I said, some people just have a natural ability to be able to do certain things, and other people really have to work at being really good at what they do. I'm not saying that the people who have some natural predisposition to be good don't have to work at it. But I think sometimes they're just built a certain way, and they understand things, and their physicality and abilities are better than others. And I think we could all agree with that. Think of some of the best athletes of all time, or the best songwriters of all time. Just think of all these great people that you admire and think of, consider to be great or really good at what they do. There's a saying that good is the enemy of great. That could be a whole nother topic, but I think what they mean by that is that some people only achieve good enough to be able to do something. So it's not just good, it's good enough. Or you're amazingly adequate at what you're doing. But I think that mindset puts blocks in your way of you achieving greater things. The other thing that we see online a lot is especially younger kids who are playing drums. I'm going to relate it to drums because that's what I'm watching the most, is other drummers. You see small kids and they're playing ridiculously complicated things, polyrhythms, and playing just unbelievably fast, and these gospel chop things, and they're just raging around the kit. Now, that's impressive for sure when you first watch it. You're like, oh my gosh, look at this, 10-year-old kid is unbelievable. Yeah, he is, but at the same time, he's lacking the experience that you get as you grow older and you're applying those things. So he or she hasn't been exposed to that realm yet, but I'm sure they'll probably thrive when they get to that. And it's also, I don't want to say easy necessarily, but you're just seeing a small snippet of something, like within 30 seconds, something under a minute, generally speaking. So, but yeah, you just see these It's unreal. El Estepario, that drummer, is doing just otherworldly things on the drums, which I will never achieve. Why is that? Is it because I'm not good enough? No, it's because what he does is what he does. It's not what I do. Like, that's his thing. So I'm not going to try to emulate what El Estepario is doing. And for what I'm doing with my music, I don't foresee a need to be able to do that. So I'm going to let El Estepario have the corner of that market. He's very, very good at what he does. So, but that doesn't make me less of a drummer. It just makes I'm Fred Fisher and he's El Estepario. I'm watching the World Series, which I'm not a baseball fanatic by any stretch of the imagination. I couldn't tell you what all the names of the teams are. I couldn't tell you who plays on what team. I couldn't tell you any history, so to speak, of any of these baseball teams. But what I will tell you is that when I see a really good game, I enjoy watching a really good game. I don't understand all the rules, just like football. But when something's exciting and fun to watch, then I don't mind watching that. So, and just as time permitted, I was able to watch Game 1 of the World Series and Game 2. And I watched most of Game 3 last night. Didn't see the beginning, but I saw like the bottom of the third through the end. At any rate, Game 1, Dodgers versus Yankees in Los Angeles. They were tied going into the ninth inning. I think it was 3-3, or maybe it was 2-2. I don't remember for sure, but it went into overtime. So in the 10th inning, bases loaded, and it's the bottom of the 10th, and it's Dodgers are up to bat. The baseball player Freddie Freeman, which his name, of course, caught my attention, steps up to the plate, pitch, hits the ball, and you can just tell immediately from his body language, he knew that was a home run hit, grand slam. You could just tell by the way he swung and he stopped for a moment. There was a certain sound to that ball being hit, and he just raised his bat up in the air. Grand slam. And I think that game was 2-6, I think, or 3-7. I don't remember for sure. They won by 4, I believe is the case. But you could just tell the certain confidence that Freddie Freeman, I want to say Freddie Fisher, Freddie Freeman had when he went to bat and he swung that bat and hit that ball, grand slam home run. And then they won Game 1 of the World Series. It was really super cool to watch. But these baseball players have done this work, have done all of this stuff to become the best at what they do. And they don't have that attitude of not just good, but good enough. And so typically, I bet if you knew the story of any of those baseball players, again, I can't speak specifically about any of them because I'm not that into it, okay? But they typically have a lifelong dedication to playing baseball. More than likely, they started out as little kids. Their dad was probably a baseball fan of some kind, maybe a fanatic, maybe their own coach. I know a lot of kids grow up that play baseball that their dad had been their coach, as when they were in little league or whatever. So they spend this lifelong pursuit of playing baseball with these dreams, typically of making it to the Major League Baseball teams. So they put all this work into it. And then, so if you look at any of the players that are on the Dodgers or the Yankees, I was thinking that watching TV is that each one of those guys has put all this time and effort to achieve and be part of this ball league, But is that the end of it for them? Is the work stop once they reach that? No, it doesn't. I can imagine it gets even more intense. I'm sure these guys train in a weight room of some kind. And as good as ball players that these guys are, these ball players become household names. So they achieve a certain level, but that's not where all the work stops. I mean, those guys, as good as they are, as much as they bring to the table, as much as they're being paid to be a pro athlete, they still have coaches that are telling them what to do and how to improve. Now, can you imagine being at the top of your game, the best in your industry, the best of everything, and you have somebody over you that's saying, that's not good enough, because they have a goal that they're trying to meet. So those guys, as good as they are, have to be humble enough and respectful enough to know, I still need direction in what I'm doing. So, bringing that back around to, are you as good as you think you are? Okay, musicians. I'm talking to myself as well. Now, to be honest with you, I do believe I have a certain skill set, and because of that certain skill set, I've watched my music career grow. Can I be better at what I do? Yes, 100%. I could be. And depending on what I need to do or what opportunities might be happening, I may have to stop and pause and go, hey, I really need to work on this area, whatever that might be, to be better, to be prepared to do my job, which is to play the drums. So musicians, are you as good as you think that you are? And are you willing to take advice or criticism or direction from somebody else that can actually help you be better? I think some of our knee-jerk reactions is to feel a little embarrassed or to think that we don't need to improve ourselves, because when that comes up, our immediate thing is to try to find something wrong with the other person. Well, you didn't do this, or, hey, could you play this better? I would play better if you played better. Those kind of things. Thomas says the learning never stops. There's always something to learn. We're all students of the game, so to speak. Yes, we are. Always be willing to be the student. Always be willing to learn. For as long as I've taught drum lessons, and now it's more or less my full-time job to teach, as the days and weeks and months and years pass and different students come in, there's always a challenge, because I'm teaching the same information to every student, more or less, but how students absorb information or how they can relate to information, sometimes you have to present the same information in 40 different ways or more. As teachers, you're always coming up with, how do I explain this to this student so that they understand easily and can move forward? So that's always a challenge as being a teacher of any instrument or even a sport, a teacher in general. So it's really good to be aware of what's happening with those. I told you there was 3 things. One was the baseball players. I think we covered that. 2 is these drummers. There's been a handful of them. There's probably more than that, but I keep seeing about the same 3 to 4 people. They're posting, they're either clapping or they're playing on a snare drum or playing a drum beat, a rhythm, and then they give you choices to choose from, like A through D or 1 through 4, and it says guess this rhythm, and I'll listen to it, hear the rhythm, and I go, oh, he's playing rhythm B, so I'll comment B, and then I'll click on the comments to see if everybody else thinks it's B. And more or less, everybody thinks it's the same thing. But then there'll be these comments that will say it's none of them. And then I'm curious, like, why do they think it's none of them? So you click on that comment because there's other comments. And then you will have people agree with them, and then people who will defend the person who created the content. And it's interesting when people will say, oh, that person is wrong, their timing is terrible, they missed the rest, they did this, that's not that rhythm. From what I see, more often than not, clearly that person is 100% wrong. 100%. Now, I never engage with those people because there's plenty of other people engaging with them to begin with, and they're not convincing that person either. And they have this attitude in what they're putting out there, that they're right and you're wrong, and how dare this person put this out there and confuse the drumming community, and I've seen some people get really worked up about it. For example, there was a gal who tapped out a rhythm really slow. So without me telling you what it is, this is what she did. She went. Okay? 8 hits. I immediately said, those are eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3. I didn't read the caption. It was just she played eighth notes really slow. She didn't have any examples. She just said, "What am I doing?" or something like that. And in fact, she tapped it with a highlighter marker on the top of her piano. Now, a lot of the comments were, if you were tapping on my piano, I would fire you or whatever. They were criticizing her for tapping on the piano with her pen, for one. And then people said, those are quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. No, they weren't. They were eighth notes. And then I went back and read the caption, and her caption said, this is one measure of rhythm. Okay, so yes, I was right. Eighth notes. There were so many people arguing with her, those can't be eighth notes because you don't play eighth notes that slow. I was unaware that if you play a slow tempo, that eighth notes seem to not exist anymore. No, that's not the case. I didn't argue with any of those people. I was just scrolling through the comments. But it's interesting where people put their hands on their hips and claim to be right when they're clearly uninformed or wrong. So hopefully my students know better. And I do see some of my students commenting on those same posts, and they're also answering those questions correctly, which is a win in my book. But it's just interesting that these people can't even look at themselves in the mirror and say, oh, I was wrong. This person is doing it right. I've yet to find any of those drummers putting those rhythm videos out that have been wrong. So I was thinking about those particular situations and are you as good as you think you are? Bart, what were you wrong about? Bart Robley, you're never wrong about anything. And you have great choice of friends, right? I think the hardest thing for us to do is to look at ourselves in the mirror and evaluate what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, or areas of improvement that need to happen. So for example, if you are in and out of bands constantly, or you're bouncing from band to band, and then, because I've witnessed this, I haven't had this happen to myself, but I've seen and I know other musician friends who were in this band for a short period of time, and now they're in this band, and then that's short-lived, and now they're in this other band, and that's short-lived, and they put all this effort and time into starting something that stalls out or falls apart, or they get fired from whatever they're doing. If you're that person that's always going from here to here, and then you're complaining about, well, the drummer did this or the bass player did, it's highly probable that you're the common denominator and all that. Something's going on with you. Is it the area of your talent that needs improvement? Or maybe you're just a hard person to deal with. There's always that possibility as well. Chip says, I'm better than I was. I think recording and reviewing later can really help you grow as a drummer. Yes, when you are rehearsing or performing, it is so easy to record yourself. We have cell phones, little Tascam recorders, a lot of simple ways to get a decent recording. So record yourself rehearsing. alone, record yourself with the band, and record yourself from your live performance and then watch that. It's a great learning tool. I have the benefit of having my own recording studio. You can go and record, and then the recording engineer or the mix engineer can go and fix things. They can fix out of tune singing. They can fix out of time drumming. They can fix terrible sounding guitars. There's a lot of things that can happen behind the curtain that you may or may not be aware of. And then when you get the recording, you go, oh, wow, I sound really great. When in fact, you really didn't sound that great, and the mix engineer had to do all of this Band-Aid work to make it listenable. So make sure that you're listening to stuff that hasn't been doctored, stuff that's untouched, because that's where you're really, really going to grow. And, I think sometimes you need to be told, hey, you're not doing so well. Because maybe you get a false sense of where you are with your abilities if everybody just tells you you're great all the time. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't feel good when somebody appreciates what you do. And on a side note of that, if you're doing a show and somebody comes up to you and go, man, I love that song that you played, and that drum fill that you played was just the coolest thing ever. And that, man, you're awesome. Say thank you to them. Don't say, and think that this is an act of humility or something. Don't go, oh, yeah, but I really botched up this one thing and I dropped my stick. And because that shatters that person's experience. When they think something's really, really great, somebody from the audience, and they're appreciating you, and you flip it back around and you tell them how terrible you are, that ruins that moment for them. Bart says, knowing Chip and Fred and Barbara will make you a better drummer. See? My famous mother-in-law. Serena says, I greatly appreciate that you don't let me slide and have me practice until I can't get it wrong. Yes. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. That means you know it so well. It's so ingrained in you. It's I told one of my high school students the other day, I said, there were certain subjects in school I didn't like, I didn't understand, they made me nervous, and I barely squeaked by passing those classes. And so if I had a test to do, I would try to memorize things just to survive the test. It didn't mean that I knew that information at all. And so I would really, really struggle, and I would be like, oh, I finally got past that test. Well, it's different with drumming. I think sometimes students think like, oh, once I'm done with this page, I'll never have to look at it again. Fred's never going to ask me to play this again, so I just survived playing it. No, I want you to actually really know it, so that in 3 months I could just flip back to that page and go, play that for me. And they go, oh, yeah, no problem. They know it that well. I do this show every week, and my audience continues to grow, which is awesome. The only reason I ever started this to begin with was I wanted to be better at public speaking. A couple of reasons. One is I had done a couple master classes at Idaho Fine Arts Academy where I did a whole drum thing for part of the school, and then later in the day I did the second half of the school came in. So I did a drum solo and played some well-known drum beats and had some rhythm things and talked about my career, etc. And I was nervous about speaking. And then I started having different people want to interview me for their podcast. And I found myself kind of stumbling around. Not that I don't stumble anymore, but I wanted to be more comfortable on camera. So that's where I started this. At any rate, here we are at episode 98, and I've got people all over the world who will watch, which wasn't my intent, but you're here, and that's awesome, and I appreciate each and every one of you. So then I get drummers, mostly drummers from all over, who will message me and ask questions, and these are people I've never met. but they've seen my YouTube channel and what I do and watched my TikTok videos and things like that. So then they'll ask my opinions about things and send me stuff. So a drummer, back East Coast drummer, had messaged me a couple days ago and said that he was recently relieved of his position with his band, meaning he was fired. He wanted to know my opinions about being fired from his band. And he told me the reason why is that his band more or less told him he sucked and that they needed a better drummer. I asked him, I said, how long have you been in this band? He'd been in the band for 7 months. And now this is just information he's given me. I haven't talked to anybody else in the band. And I said, okay, are you playing covers? Are you playing originals? Mostly covers. It was a cover band. And I think they had originals. I don't know for sure how many. And I said, do you have any video that you can share with me so I can hear you playing with your band? He said, yeah. And so he sent me this YouTube link of a live gig that they had played. It was 3 different songs. It was all this long video. It was about 17 minutes long or so of them playing. I watched it. The singer was absolutely stellar. The singer was amazing. I was like, I got to find out who this singer is. Really great. Guitar player had great tone. Pretty acceptable player. Bass player I couldn't hear very well. Band looked cool as a whole. Even the drummer, they looked like a really great band. But I listened, and the drumming was I don't know how else to say it. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was you could really see there was a tug of war in tempo between the band members. There was a lot of stumbly, choppy drumming, out of time playing. And there's a whole reason I'm not mentioning exactly who this person is. And if they get mad at, I don't think they're going to get mad at me for sharing this because they wanted to know my opinion. So yeah, the drummer obviously needed a lot of work to catch up to the level of his bandmates. So 7 months, from the time he got in the band. Now, I don't know if the band existed prior to that or not, but, I'm thinking like, well, how often does a band rehearse? Once or twice a week, maybe? I would just be guessing by their age that, they're in their mid-30s to mid-40s-ish. People usually at that age are probably rehearsing once a week, maybe twice. And they had played 3 gigs. So after this 3rd gig, he got fired. Now, initially when I gave him feedback, it wasn't taken very well. Now, I was trying to be very gentle and saying, yeah, have you worked with a metronome before? Have you guys decided as a band on how fast you're going to play these songs? No, he's never worked with the metronome. No, they hadn't decided. They would have arguments after rehearsal or the prior 2 shows about whose fault it was that the song was too slow or too fast. Using a metronome clears this information up very quickly. And then there's no arguing over that. So his initial knee-jerk response was, how dare I say anything negative? Well, you sent me a video to critique, which I did. I asked him, I said, do you take drum lessons? And he said no. And I said, it may be a good idea for you to find somebody in your area that you can see personally. And if that doesn't work out, we could do lessons online, even for a short time if you're interested. And so his immediate defense was, he didn't want to have anything to do with any of that. He didn't want to hear that. I think he was just looking for somebody to be on his side, to defend him. And I don't really know this person personally. So, it's not going to hurt me, to be honest. So after a few days of not hearing back, he messaged me back and said, I've cooled down and I really watched that, and yeah, I need some work. I got to get some work, and that he was going to try to find a local drum teacher to help him out, because he said he loved playing drums so much and loved the experience of playing live on stage. He didn't want that missing from his life, and so he said, I'm willing to do what it takes to be better at what as a better drummer, that so that I can have a band that wants me to be there, and I want to be able to do this. So his first reaction was, how dare I? How dare I say these things? And then that after a few days, looking at himself in the mirror and realizing what he'd just lost, this love of this thing, and realizing, oh, I need improvement, and I'm going to find somebody to help me improve so I don't lose that going forward. And I thought that was really, really great, because, here's somebody I don't know personally at all who has an opportunity to improve themselves and to move forward. And I thought that was really, really great. So sometimes you need that person to come along and say, hey man, this isn't cutting it. Right person, right seat. And you got to have your skill set put together. And just, I've admitted multiple times through this video, I know there's areas of my drumming that I could improve. And depending on what the job is that I need to do, like if I'm going to track drums for somebody and they want a bunch of double bass stuff, then I got to brush up on my double bass playing. So it's just recognizing, looking at yourself and going, am I really as good as I think I am? And I don't mean that from a inflated view of oneself or an egotistical standpoint. I know a lot of pro level musicians, not just drummers, but people that play other instruments, and they've worked very, very hard for what they have. Just like I talked about the Major League Baseball players. These people, even at the level that they're playing, they're still working on being the best them that they can be. And doing as a result of that, their resume speaks for itself. They continue to do amazing things. They continue to be part of amazing things. All right, you guys have a great, awesome day. 2 episodes away from 100, and I got to find out something cool to do for that. And it'll also be the week after my appointment, so I'm hoping to start walking soon. I am going crazy. I'm going absolutely out of my head. So, happy Tuesday, National Cat Day. Yeah, fun. Go practice. Be willing to be coachable. Be willing to learn. Oh, Peter Jeanette's here. Let's catch up with Peter really quick. Anyone with rock in the middle name can be trusted. Oh, I didn't type that loud enough. For Babs, Fred rocks. Cool. And Serena says, nice to see you, Bart. Yeah. Fred Rock, School of Drumming. That's it. See you next week.